गुड इवनिंग टू ऑल ऑफ यू। कैसे हैं सब लोग? आई कुड एबल टू नो सम पीपल बट वेरियस आर न्यू पीपल, सो माय वेरी वार्म गुड इवनिंग टू ऑल ऑफ यू। ओह, क्या बात है। So we are going to start. Today topic is time and value the supply, which is to be completed in 2 classes. ठीक है. So let me start the time of supply first and then we'll switch to the value of the supply. As usual, some of the participants are aware about my way of asking the question, and thanking to each one of you because you are always giving the actively reply by which the class become active and very interactive. So now the today topic is, as we discuss time and value the supply, why we need to understand the time of supply, why we need to understand the time of supply, or what is the requirement to read this chapter. Because one transaction can be staggered in the multiple tax period, multiple months. Let's say you have given the advance to me in the month of January. I have completed the manufacturing in the month of February. And let's say I have supplied the goods in the month of March and raised the tax invoice in the month of April, for which you have given the 50% advance in the month of December, and the balance payment is given in the May. Now the question is, the transaction is being staggered from December to May. In which period we need to discharge the GST liability? That question is being answered by this chapter, time of supply. So in other words, I can say point in time when the liability to pay the tax arise. Will it be advance? Will it be removal of the goods? Will it be raising the invoice? Will it be the balance payment? That we are going to discuss. In this chapter, we are going to discuss the first time of supply for the goods and then time of supply for the services. These are the two parts we are going to cover. Now the section 12, that which talks about the time of supply of the goods, is being divided in further following parts. Time of supply of the goods under forward charge, time of supply of the goods under reverse charge, supply of the vouchers that can be used to pay for the goods, and residually close. Residuary means, so in case if I am not able to determine the time of supply in any of the above provisions. And last is, if I am taking the interest, late fees, or the penalty for the delayed payment of any considerations. So please give me the answer. What is the meaning of the forward charge and what is the meaning of the reverse charge? Can you please tell me what is the difference between forward and reverse charge? क्या डिफरेंस क्या होता है इन दोनों में? फॉरवर्ड चार्ज में क्या है और रिवर्स चार्ज में क्या डिफरेंस है? क्या मतलब है इनका? Kindly give me the answer. What is the meaning of the forward charge and how it is different from reverse charge, or what is the meaning of the reverse charge? What is the difference between forward versus reverse? Very good evening to all, yaar. Love to see all of you because kindly confirm what is the difference between forward charge and reverse charge. So the answer is the forward means, क्या बात है, wow. Bhumika is given the answer, absolutely correct. Miss Sahana Babaji, absolutely correct. Darshan, okay, very nice. Kabilian, Dikshita, Isan, Singh, great. Now you tell me one more thing. Can you give me one example of the time of supply? Sorry, can you give me one example for the RCM for goods? Can you give me one example for goods which is covered under reverse charge? क्या आप मुझे कोई एक एग्जांपल बता सकते हैं जिसके ऊपर रिवर्स चार्ज एप्लीकेबल है गुड्स में? प्लीज डू नॉट कोट दैट if supplier is unregistered and recipient registered. Apart from that, could you give me any one example wherein the goods ka transaction is covered under the reverse charge? Very nice, sir. Very nice. Thank you so much. So actively reply. You are going to increase my very nice. So my enthu is going to be increased, no doubt about that. And in the same manner, please give the reply. Yes, 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 yes. I'm talking about the Darshan. I'm talking about the goods. Diksha, talking about the goods, but the legal service given by the advocate is an example of services which is covered in the reverse charge. But we are talking about the goods. Thank you so much. Kavita has given the right answer that the cashew nuts, BD wrapper, tendu leaf, silk yarn, confiscated goods, priority sector lending certificate, multiple transactions are there. Yes, raw cotton. Singh Rajiv Kumar, absolutely correct. Rest all has given the answer for the services. Now, so what we are doing, we will talk about forward charge. What is the time of supply for the forward charge? What is the time of supply for the reverse charge? And then the balance part we are going to cover. Great. Thank you, Darshan. Thank you. So, time of supply of the goods, there are two clauses. Section 12, subsection 2, clause A and the clause B. It is talking about date of invoice by the supplier. So, what is the first? Date of invoice. And second is last date on which invoice is required to be issued, and according to section 31. According to section 31. So we have understood one thing, that first the date of invoice. Second is last date on which supplier is required to be issued the invoice. Now we need to understand that what is the last date. According to section 31, what is the last date to issue the invoice? Perfect. And the clause B says the date on which the supplier received the payment with respect to supply. The date on which the supplier received the payment in respect to the supply. So I'm making the supply, you are making the payment. Of which you are making the payment. It means we need to pay the GST on advance. Initial stage I'm talking about. Let me think. Or you assume that you are in the July 17. Then at that time, do I need to pay the GST on advance? Answer was yes. Why I am required to pay the GST on advance? Because of the clause B. Why, sir? The date on which the supplier received the payment. Suppose I have not issued the invoice. I have not made the supply by which the last date is not yet attracted. So it means, but I have received the payment. I need to pay the GST on advance. That I'm talking about. That in July 17. What is the current provision? Just wait for a couple of slides. Now, the notification 66 by 2017. You are not required to remember the notification number. From 15th November 2017. From 15th November 2017. If you are making the supply of the goods you are registered as a regular dealer, not the composite dealer, then in that case, no GST on advance for supply of goods under forward charge. Under forward charge. So let me ask couple of points. You are requested to give me the answer so that some confusion will be clarified. If I am making the service, if I am providing the supply the service, whether by this notification advance is being relaxed for supply of service, advance is being relaxed for supply of the service. भाई मैं सर्विस लेट से मैं आपको पढ़ा रहा हूं और उसके लिए मुझे आईसीआई ने एडवांस पेमेंट कर दिया, क्या मुझे जीएसटी नहीं देना है? Do I not required to pay the GST on advance for service but after this notification? The answer is this notification. Answer is yes, you need to pay the GST because this notification has given the relaxation only for goods. किसको रिलैक्स किया है? They have relaxed only for the supply of the goods, not for services. Second point. Let me go back. At the initial stage, we have discussed that in this section, we are going to cover the time of supply for the forward charge, time of supply for the reverse charge. So the question came whether on advance GST is being relaxed for the supply of the goods under both cases, forward charge or reverse charge. Remember always that the notification 66 has given the relaxation for 12 subsection 2 clause B. It means only for the forward charge, meaning thereby if my transaction is covered under reverse charge, like you have given the example of cashew nuts, BD wrapper, etc. And at that point of time, I have given the advance, it will attract the RCM liability. We are going to discuss in the RCM category, but point to be noted, this notification has relaxed. This notification has relaxed GST, no GST on advance for supply the goods under forward charge and for regular dealer. I hope it is clear. एक बार quickly confirm करना. Is this clear? अभी तक क्लियर है ना? फिर मैं जब क्वेश्चन पूछूंगा तो जवाब सही देना आप लोग, ध्यान रखना, ठीक है? Please give the correct answer when I'm asking the question, because in every class there's a after completion of every chapter last 10 to 15 minutes I'm keeping only for the quick round of the question answer. ठीक है? So let's move. That up to rupees 1000. So now this is not too much applicable, but yes, the same proviso, same explanation are there for services. So try to understand here, which will be replicated in forward charge for services. The proviso says if supplier receive the advance up to rupees 1000, then it is a choice. It is the option available with supplier. Either he can pay the tax on advance or he can pay the tax in the next invoice in respect of such excess amount. What is the example? Let's say I have made the supply of 19,200. While making the payment, you have given me the payment of rupees 20,000 and you are saying rupees 800, treat the advance and adjust at the time of next invoicing. So I, being a supplier, have the choice of which category of choice. What choice? The choice that rupees 800 I can treat as an advance and pay the GST, or I can defer the liability to next date, that is date of issue of invoice, in respect of that such excess amount. So, but is it relevant now for the goods? No, it is not relevant. It is relevant like in case of the forward charge of the goods. Let me ask one very good question. Let me ask very good question. You give me the answer. Suppose you tell me whether is there any situation in which the supplier of goods under forward charge need to pay the tax at the time of advance. Kindly give the answer. Really appreciate it. मेरा क्वेश्चन क्या, मैं हिंदी में एक बार रिपीट कर देता हूं. मैं सप्लायर हूं गुड्स का, मेरा ट्रांजैक्शन टैक्सेबल है फॉरवर्ड चार्ज में. क्या कोई ऐसी सिचुएशन हो सकती है जिसमें मुझे एडवांस के ऊपर टैक्स देना पड़े? मैं गुड्स की बात कर रहा हूं, फॉरवर्ड चार्ज की बात कर रहा हूं. Absolutely correct. Ritik has given the right answer. And some more participant has given the right answer, that if I am registered under composite dealer. If I am registered under composite dealer, do I need to pay the GST on advance for supply the goods? This is being divided in two parts. If you are registered under regular category, then no GST on advance. If you are registered under composition category, then still you need to pay the tax under forward charge because the notification has not given the relaxation to the composite dealer. I hope there are some couple of questions. You may ask the question. Only when you have received the payment but not the goods sent to you, have to pay the tax. Let me repeat once again to all the participants because it appears that there are some confusion. See, this is the notification which has relaxed that if I am a supplier of the goods, I am paying the tax under forward charge and I am registered under regular category. I am supplier of the goods, taxable under forward charge, and I am registered under regular category. If the three conditions are satisfied, then if the three conditions are satisfied, then if you give me the advance payment, I am not required to pay the GST. When I am required to pay the GST at the time of issuance of invoice or last date of invoice, whichever is earlier. So my question was, is there any situation wherein supplier of goods under forward charge need to pay the GST on advance? The answer would be yes. Answer would be yes. When? If I am registered under composition category. Varsa has asked the question, in case of the composition, GST need to be paid. Absolutely correct, Varsa. Miss Balaji, I am not able to understand why you are giving the link of the input tax. Because ITC won't be available. Suman Banerjee, why you are saying in excess of rupees 1000? Because that 1000 was initially have the applicability, but currently it does not have the applicability. Whether you receive more than 1,000 or less than 1,000. If you are regular dealer, no GST on advance. If you are composite dealer, need to pay the GST. Then I can say this 1,000 ka proviso is being applicable for composite dealer. When he is supplying the goods on cash sale, Darshan, it is immaterial whether you are making the sale on cash or credit. The provision would remain same. If you are making the supply of goods on cash basis or on credit basis, doesn't matter, the provision would remain same. Let me move further slide. So the explanation says that supply shall be deemed to have been made to the extent it is covered by the invoice, as the case may be the payment. So for, let's say I have issued the invoice, you have given me the advance, or you have given me some amount, let's say you have given advance and I have issued the invoice, let's say for the part. So in that case, it is assumed that part goods has been, it will deem to have been made, means supply has been made to that extent. Now we are using the word, what is the meaning of date of payment? So the date of payment would be, the date of on which supplier received the payment would be earlier of below 2. What is the 2? The date on which amount is entered in the books of accounts, or the date on which the payment is credited in the bank. So what is the meaning of the payment? The date on which I have received the amount is being credited in the bank, or the date on which I have passed the accounting entry in the books, whichever is earlier. That will be the date on which the supplier received the payment. Give me only 1 minute. So it is clear to all, correct? Let me move to the next point. Now the point comes that according to section 31, when I need to issue the tax invoice, see, the first is actual date of invoice, and then second is the last date to issue the tax invoice. What is the last date to issue the tax invoice? The last date to issue the tax invoice is being covered by section 31. It says that the invoice need to be issued either before or at the time of removal. See, point to be noted, can I issue the invoice in advance? Advance means before making the supply, can I issue the tax invoice? 100% yes. Even without making the supply, can I issue the tax invoice? Yes, because section 31 says that invoice need to be issued before or at the time of removal of the goods. Removal when the supply involve the movement of goods. Or if it does not involve the movement. Suppose, what could be the example where the supply does not involve the movement? What could be the example where the supply does not involve the movement? Let's say I am principal, Mr. A is a principal and Mr. B is a job worker. try to understand the example. For which part I am giving the example? That where the supply is being there of goods, but there is no movement. I'm giving the example where the supply does not involve the movement of the goods. The example is, let's say A is a principal, B is a job worker. Okay? A has given the machine to be on service, on rental basis, for which Mr. A is charging per month X amount. That is a transaction of goods or services? Answer is services. After 6 months, let's say B is saying, sir, this machine is good, I like to purchase. A is sold that machine in rupees, let's say 10 lakh. Now, there is a supply of the goods. Yes. But will there be any involvement? Will there be any movement involved in this case? No. There is no involvement of movement of goods. So in this case, the date of the delivery, the day when it is being finalized, then the date of delivery of the goods or making available to the recipient, that will be the last date to issue the tax invoice. And there is a concept of continuous supply of the goods. The invoice should be issued before or at the time of issuance of periodical statement or payment. In the morning, I'm giving you the example of the continuous supply of the goods. Let's say in the morning, Mr. A coming to your factory and making the delivery of, let's say, Bisleri bottle. On daily basis is coming. Or on daily basis is supplying the newspaper, periodicals, magazines, and assume that it is a taxable. In that case, on fortnightly basis, after a gap of the 15 days, he is issuing the tax invoice. So he is issuing some statement. Or let's say on weekly basis, you are making the payment. So whichever is earlier, that will be the last date to issue the tax invoice by the supplier. Darshan is asking, composition dealer means the one who is registered under the composition scheme? Yes. The continuous supply of the goods is a supply of the goods provided or agreed to be provided on a continuous basis under a contract, and for which the supplier issue an invoice to the recipient on regular or periodically basis. See, you can compare with continuous supply of the service. It is a continuous supply of the goods. After some time, we will discuss the continuous supply of service. In the continuous supply of the service, there is minimum 90 days period required. What I'm saying, that difference between continuous supply of the goods and continuous supply of the service. In the supply of the goods, there is no minimum period for which there is a supply required. But in case of the services, the minimum period is being defined, that is 90 days. Now there is one more provision, 31 subsection 7, which talks about if I am sending the goods on approval, sales on approval. There's a concept of sales on approval, right? So if this is the case, what is the last date to issue the tax invoice? Invoice should be issued before or at the time of the supply, or 6 months from the date of the removal, whichever is earlier. In case of the sales on approval, so when it is being removed within 6 months, either you give me the confirmation or return the goods. Otherwise, it will be treated as deemed supply. And then after that expiry, I have to issue the tax invoice. Now, let's read the example. All are requested to read the example. A machine has to be supplied at site. It is done by sourcing various component from vendor and assembling the machine at site. Determine the time of supply in the above scenario for the purpose of payment of tax. 17 September, purchase order with advance rupees 50,000 is received for machine worth rupees 12 and entry duly made in the seller's books of accounts. 20th of October, the machine is assembled and installed at site and accepted by buyer. 23rd October, invoice is being raised. And 4th of November, the balance payment of 11,50,000. So I have received the 50,000 advance. Machine was of total 12 lakh rupees. The balance payment is being received on 4th of November. Please tell me what is the time of supply in this case. इस केस में टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई क्या होगा? So waiting for your reply. The time of supply would be 17 September, 20th of October, 23rd October, or 4th of November. What is the time of supply? What is the time of supply? Date of removal means, Bhumika, date of removal means the date on which the goods has been moved out from your factory for delivering to the customer. There is a mixed answer. Some are saying 17, some are saying 20, some are saying 23rd, and some are saying November. Please ask me one more point, that in this case, whether date of payment is relevant. In this case, whether date of payment is relevant, let's say it is 17 September 2022. Whether in this case, the date of payment is relevant or not. क्या date of payment relevant है इस केस में? Please give the answer whether date of payment is relevant in this case. Answer is no. By notification 66, I can say 15th November 2017, the date on which the amount is being received is not to be considered in case of the regular category of taxpayer. It is not relevant. Now, if it is not relevant, then what is the two date? Date of invoice and last date on which invoice is required to be issued. The date of invoice is clear to all, 23rd October. Second is the date on which the invoice is required to be issued as per section 31. 31 says that if it is a movement of the goods, then the date of the removal of the goods, or otherwise the date on which the delivery happen or it has been accepted by the recipient. So I can say in this case, the 20th October, the date when the goods were made available to the customer, because I need to assemble at site. So till the time the machine is not being installed, not been assembled, supply is not being completed. And also we have talked about the 31 subsection 7, which talks about if there's a sales on approval or return basis, then the date on which the customer accept, that will be date or 6 months from the date of removal, whichever is earlier. So I can say the 20th of October would be the last date to issue the invoice, and date of invoice is 23rd October. and therefore whichever is earlier, that is the 20th of October would be the time of supply in this case. Now we are, in case of any confusion, please ask, otherwise let me move to the another point, time of supply for the goods under reverse. Sushil, again you are saying the date of payment. Why you are talking about the date of the payment? After notification 66, 15th November 2017, the date of the payment is become redundant. It is not relevant. So why you are considering again 4th of November? Suman Banerjee, the answer would be 20 or 23rd, whichever is earlier. I hope it is clear to all. Great. Darshan is saying that entry in the books is made in 17 September. Why it is not considered? Very good question. So first point, why it is not being considered? Because of this notification. This notification says that you are not required to consider at all the date on which the supplier received the payment. So where we have discussed date on which the supplier received the payment, this is on which the payment is recorded in the books or credited in the bank, whichever is earlier. But this is for date of receipt of payment. After this notification, the date of the payment has been completely ignored. They are saying you should ignore the date on which the supplier received the payment. So therefore, if I'm ignoring this date entirely, why I should calculate the date when the amount is entered in the books or the date on which the supplier received the amount in the bank account, credited in the bank account? Why I should consider these dates? Not at all relevant. Not at all relevant. I hope it is clear. Illustration 1, Sushil, let me explain. No problem. Let me explain. In the illustration number 1, I was simply saying that this date is not relevant at all, which I have just now explained. So what is the two date? The date of invoice and last date of invoice. Last date on which the invoice is required to be issued. Correct? These are the two dates. So the date of invoice is 23rd October. What is the last date to issue the tax invoice? If it is movement of the goods, then date of removal. Otherwise, the date when you are delivered the goods, you are making it available to the recipient. So it says that I have to install the machine at site. So the date on which the machine is installed, that is the last date to issue the tax invoice. Correct. So go back. What is that provision? Go back. What is the provision? We have discussed that time of supply of the goods is date of issue of invoice, that is 23rd October, and the last date on which invoice is required to be issued, 20 October. Correct. Therefore, whichever is earlier, that is 20th of October, become the time of supply in this example. Still, if you have confusion, you can ask multiple questions, no problem. What is the date 6 months from the removal in that illustration? It is not there. So this was not on sales on approval. This was not on sales on approval. So I've given the example, multiple example in which if it is a sales on approval, then you need to consider the date of removal plus maximum 6 months. It is not relevant. So last date to issue the tax invoice is being given in section 31. There are multiple scenarios. Like if there is a movement of the goods, then the last date would be the date of removal. If there is no movement of the goods, then last date would be the date on which the delivery is made or goods are made available to the recipient. So in the illustration number 1, I have took this provision, the date on which the goods are made available to the recipient because I have to install, right? Na? ठीक है. So Bhumika is saying, sir, for checking the time of supply, we will consider the. See, what is the requirement? The requirement is last day to issue the tax invoice. Obviously, 100% correct. Bhumika, you need to check what is the last day to issue the tax invoice. Correct. And which you will compare with the date of invoice, and whichever is earlier would be the time of supply. Diksha, it will be payable only at the date of supply, not on the date of the payment after notification. Yes. But Diksha, only date of the payment, you are correct. But date of supply, what is the date of supply? So in which we have to consider two dates, invoice and last day to issue the invoice. Sushil, I have already explained. I hope it is clear now. I have re-explained because of you only. You have given the same. Rakshita, GST on advance payment in case of the composition. Yes, it is still applicable. It is still applicable. Vaishali Bindal, I hope better it is clear. Kindly confirm. Ritik, absolutely correct. Date of invoice or removal of the goods, whichever is earlier. Okay. If invoice date is 19th November, then again, whichever is earlier. Na? See, in this case, I have compared these two dates. You are saying it is 19th November. What is the problem? Still the 20th October would be the earlier. So the 20th October would be the last date to issue the tax invoice, and therefore the time of supply will be the 20th of October. Let's move to the next case. Time of supply of goods under reverse charge. It is very simple. The date on which in case of the RCM, a reverse charge, we all know, and you all have given the correct answer, that in case of the reverse charge, the recipient is paying the tax to the government. So now, suppose Mr. A is a supplier, Mr. B is a recipient. Now the liability is on the recipient. So there would be certain relaxation, correct? Suppose he's moving the goods today, it will take some time to reach the goods. So they have given certain number of the days in the invoice. Date of invoice plus 30 days and following 30 days. So invoice plus 30 days and jo uske baad ka data, that will be the data. What is the time of supply of goods which is covered under reverse charge? Let's say Mr. B has purchased the cashew nuts from agriculturist. We are talking about the goods. Mr. B has purchased the goods from Mr. A, and A is an agriculturist. He is making the supply of the cashew nuts. Let's say BD wrapper, tendu leaf, silk yarn, confiscated goods by the government. So there are multiple cases. So what is the time of supply? Whichever is earlier, below 3. So you have to compare 3 dates. The first date is the date on which the recipient received the goods. Second, the date on which the payment is recorded in the books or the payment is debited, whichever is earlier. Please confirm. In the last case, we were discussing the date on which the amount is being credited. And here we are talking about the debited. Give me why. Give me the reason why we are not saying here credited. Rather, we are saying debited. Can anybody give me the reason? मैं यहां पर डेबिटेड क्यों बोल रहा हूं, जबकि लास्ट केस में तो मैंने क्रेडिटेड बोला था. डेट ऑफ द पेमेंट क्या होता है? डेट ऑन विच द अकाउंटिंग एंट्रीज पास और क्रेडिट इन द बैंक व्हिचएवर इज अर्लियर. बट अब इस केस में मैं यहां पर डेबिट क्यों बोल रहा हूं? सुमन, Vaishali is saying that 19th November, not 19th October. If it is 19th October, yes, it would be whichever is earlier. ये क्लियर है ना बात? हम यहाँ पर रिवर्स चार्ज की बात करें. वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द रिवर्स चार्ज एंड इन विच द रिसिपिएंट विल पे द टैक्स टू द गवर्नमेंट. तो जब यहाँ पर मैं रिवर्स चार्ज की बात कर रहा हूं तो रिसिपिएंट तो पेमेंट करेगा ना. उसके तो अकाउंट में डेबिट होगा, उसके अकाउंट में डेबिट होगा। जब रिसिपिएंट बी जब पेमेंट करेगा ए को, तो उसके अकाउंट में तो डेबिट होगा। एंड दैट इज द रीजन बिकॉज वी आर डिस्कसिंग हियर रिवर्स चार्ज। ठीक है। नाउ द फर्स्ट इज द डेट ऑन विच द गुड्स आर रिसीव्ड, date on which the payment is recorded, and the date immediately following 30 days. So can you please confirm, suppose immediate following 30 days of what? From date of issue of invoice. Invoice being issued by the supplier or by recipient? Invoice or any document by whatever name called issued by the supplier. Let's say agriculturist is making the supply and is issuing any kacha paper. Recipient need to make the self invoice, but for counting 30 days, for counting 30 days, we will consider the invoice or the document issued by the supplier. Now please note the word following is there. Suppose the date of invoice is 1st May. The date of invoice is 1st May. Add 30 days. So I can say 31st May. So I can say 31st May now. Is it 31st May? No, sir. They are saying date immediately following 30 days. So we can say it is talking about 1st June. मैं रिपीट करता हूं, ये इंपॉर्टेंट है. So to the last clause, I will use the word invoice plus 31 days. Why 31 days? To avoid any mistake. Please make a note on this in your mind only. Not required to write in the exam paper. So in the back end, you will calculate 30 days plus you will take the next date. So in other word, I can say it will be the invoice plus 30 days, plus 31 days. You might ask the question, sir, why this relaxation is required? Same answer. We are talking about the RCM in which recipient will pay the tax to the government. Therefore, there are certain relaxation is being given in time of supply. Advance payment, payment of the GST and debited. We have to pay the GST to other party. Mayur, in RCM, the payment is being made. Reverse charge में tax का जो payment होता है वो किसको जाता है? Government को. Because the recipient will pay to the supplier. Okay. Yes, yes. So almost all the views are correct. So let me explain once again. Sure, I will explain. Ms. Balaji, sure, I will explain. No problem. If any participant is not clear, you can ask multiple times. No problem me to repeat. I won't find any problem. But make sure that after the class, you are not required to revise chapter, at least which we have discussed in them. Following means 1 day after 30 days. Absolutely correct. Following means 1 day after 30 days. After. Following means next day. Please explain once again. Not clear with how said it 31 days. Please explain. So, okay, fine. Try to understand in this manner that following means kya hota hai? What is the meaning of following? Following means next date. Correct. So you will add 30 and whatever the next date would be there. So you will consider that date. So what you are doing? You are adding 30 and also taking the next date. So in other word, you can say we are adding 31 day to the invoice. This point is clear to all or not? Please confirm once again. So why I am saying add 31 days to the invoice? Because it says the date immediately following. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? 30 दिन के बाद वाला दिन, मतलब 31वां दिन, 31st day. And that is the reason I am saying add invoice plus 31 days. ये वाला पॉइंट क्लियर है क्या? पहले मुझे ये बताओ, उसके बाद मैं रिपीट कर दूंगा पूरा. But first confirm whether 31 days wala concept is clear to all. Just confirm. Still, I will repeat. No problem. Still, I'll repeat. Diksha. Clear है ना? ठीक है. So let me repeat once again. What is the time of supply for the reverse charge? The time of supply. Okay, fine. All are understood. So time of supply of the goods under reverse charge would be the earlier of below 3. What is the 3? First is the date of the receipt of the goods. Second is the date on which the recipient make the payment to the supplier. So payment means the date of entry in the books or date on which the payment is debited. And third is invoice plus 31 days, or you can say immediately following after 30 days. We will consider the invoice. We will consider the invoice of supplier or recipient. In case of the reverse charge, we will consider the invoice of the supplier or the recipient. कौन सा इनवॉइस कंसिडर करना है? इनवॉइस सप्लायर का करना है कि रिसिपिएंट का करना है? आंसर इज सप्लायर. If the supplier has not issued the invoice, then what to do? Any other document issued by the supplier. Any other document issued by the supplier. By whatever name called. Correct? Fine. So we have completed the time of supply for the goods. We have completed under forward charge. We have completed under reverse charge. Let's move to the next category, time of supply of voucher. Time of supply. Okay. Solve one case. मुझे ना सिर्फ आप इसका आंसर दीजिए. Suppose ABC received the goods from Mr. Y. Y is an agriculturist. Suppose ABC received the goods from Y. Let's say it is a cashew nuts. And the supplier has issued the invoice of 1st July. ABC received the goods on 15th July. Payment is not yet made. What is the time of supply? My question is, ABC received the goods on 15th July. Date of the document by the supplier is 1st July. And payment is not yet made. What would be the time of supply in this case? Fine. Let me solve. In this case, what is the date of supply? Date of the document is 1st July. Date on which the receive the goods, 15th July. And no payment is being made. Let's move to the provision. Kindly plot the date here. Date on which the goods is being received. I can say 15th July. Date on which the payment is being made. Not applicable, not yet made. Invoice plus 31 days. The invoice was 1st July. And if I will add 31, it will come to 1st August. So whichever is earlier, the answer would be 15th July. Some of the participant has given the incorrect answer. Please confirm. Is it clear now or any confusion? If you have any confusion, please give the answer. Please always remember one thing. When you see the question, try to recall the provision and put like this only. What is the problem in this case? You have seen the 1st July, answer is being given, that whichever is earlier. No, sir. That is not the way. You should do the any question. first try to write all the provision in short and against which you should write the date and then calculate whichever is earlier. अदरवाइज क्या होगा, जब भी आप कोई डेट देखेंगे जो आपको सबसे पहले दिखाई देगी, यू विल आंसर दैट इज द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई, बट दिस मे क्रिएट और दिस may result into the incorrect answer. Fine? Is it okay? कोई confusion? हाँ हाँ जरूर कोमल, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. मेरा एक ही कंसर्न है बेटा कि आप लोगों को जितनी बार पूछना ना पूछिए, मुझे कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, बट दो चीज का ध्यान रखना. एक, क्लियर करना जब तक क्लियर नहीं हो जाए प्रोविजन, और ऐसा करना कि रिवीजन ना भी हो तब भी मैं एग्जाम दे सकूं. ठीक है, फाइन. मैंने क्या बोला कोमल? मैंने बोला कि टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई, द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई वुड बी द अर्लियर ऑफ बिलो 3. कौन कौन सा तीन था प्रोविजन? एक, डेट ऑन विच द गुड्स आर रिसीव्ड, इसमें तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, डायरेक्टली 15 जुलाई दिया हुआ है, क्वेश्चन में दिया हुआ ना 15 जुलाई. पेमेंट अभी तक किया नहीं है तो ये नॉट नो पेमेंट. तीसरा क्या है? इनवॉइस प्लस 30 days एंड देन फॉलोइंग दैट नेक्स्ट डे. इनवॉइस का डेट क्या है? 1 जुलाई. इसमें आप 30 दिन ऐड करोगे तो क्या आएगा? 31 जुलाई. 31 जुलाई के बाद वाला दिन, 31 जुलाई के बाद वाला दिन इमीडिएटली फॉलोइंग 30 days. तो 30th डे कौन सा है? 31 जुलाई. इसके नेक्स्ट डेट क्या आंसर आएगा, मतलब क्या आएगा डेट? 1 अगस्त. सो नाउ आई कैन से आई हैव द टू डेट, 15 जुलाई और 1 अगस्त, विच एवर इज कोमल आंसर बताना क्या होगा? विच एवर इज अर्लियर. सो द आंसर वुड बी 15 जुलाई would be the time of supply in this case. I hope it is clear now. वैशाली अभी ठीक है ना? चलो अब आगे बढ़ते हैं. सो एक बार क्विकली बताना क्वेश्चन 2 में क्या टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई होगा. अब गलती मत करना. क्वेश्चन 2 में टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई क्या होगा? अब गलती मत करना प्लीज. अगर मैं क्वेश्चन 2 की बात करूं तो इसमें टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई क्या होगा? क्वेश्चन 2 में बेटा गलती मत करना. क्वेश्चन 2 के लिए डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस सेम है. एबीसी रिसीव द गुड्स 3 अगस्त, पेमेंट 4 अगस्त को किया. ध्यान रखना ऊपर वाला डेट सेम है. तो व्हाट वुड बी द आंसर? दर्शन बिल्कुल करेक्ट है, बिल्कुल करेक्ट है. अभी भी गलत आंसर आ रहे हैं, अभी भी गलत आंसर आ रहे हैं, पर एटलीस्ट ठीक है. मेजोरिटी आर राइट, मेजोरिटी आर राइट. फाइन, लेट्स सी व्हाट इज द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. गुड्स कब रिसीव हुआ? 3 अगस्त को. पेमेंट कब किया? 4 अगस्त को. और इनवॉइस प्लस 30 डेज के बाद वाला दिन क्या है? 1 अगस्त. इनवॉइस कब है? 1 जुलाई का. इसमें आपने क्या ऐड किया? 31. तो क्या है आंसर? 1 अगस्त. और 3 अगस्त गुड्स रिसीव हुआ और 4 अगस्त आपने पेमेंट किया. विच एवर इज अर्लियर, द आंसर इज 1 अगस्त. ठीक है ना? वर्षा कुछ प्रॉब्लम? इज इट क्लियर? मिस बालाजी इज इट क्लियर? भूमिका इज इट क्लियर? रितिका इज इट क्लियर? क्वेश्चन नंबर 2 कर रहे हैं बेटा. ऋतिक, ऋतिक क्वेश्चन नंबर 2 कर रहे हैं, नॉट क्वेश्चन नंबर 1. ठीक है, लेट्स मूव टू द सी. मयूर देख, एक वापस समझ बात बेटा. मयूर क्या लिखा है? इमीडिएटली फॉलोइंग 30 days. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? समझ, एक बात बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट समझ. इमीडिएटली फॉलोइंग 30 days मतलब क्या हुआ? 31 days ऐड करना है. 1 जुलाई, इसमें 30 दिन ऐड किया. क्या डेट आई? 31 जुलाई. एंड उसके बाद वाली कौन सी डेट होगी? क्यों? वर्ड क्या लिखा है? इमीडिएटली फॉलोइंग 30th डे। इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? मेरा जो डेट आया 31 जुलाई, लेट्स से आई एम एडिंग 30 डेज, तो उसके बाद वाला दिन दैट वुड बी द 1 अगस्त। सो इट विल नॉट बी 30, इट विल नॉट बी 30, इट विल बी 31। वर्षा, अरे नहीं समझा बेटा। देखो ये क्या है, ये दूसरा क्वेश्चन है। अभी पहला क्वेश्चन हमने कर लिया, अब हम दूसरा क्वेश्चन कर रहे हैं। नाउ पहला क्वेश्चन का तो टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई निकाल ही लिया ना, अब ये क्वेश्चन नंबर 2 है। तो यहाँ पे गुड्स कब रिसीव हुआ? 3 अगस्त को। ये क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 तो आपने सॉल्व कर ही दिया ना, हमने डिस्कस कर लिया। अभी हम क्वेश्चन नंबर 2 कर रहे हैं, ठीक है। सो लेट्स मूव टू द लास्ट, तीसरा वाला छोड़ देते हैं। पेमेंट एडवांस आ गया, एडवांस पेमेंट है तो ठीक है। 8th of July would be the time of supply in 30 days. Let's move to the voucher. वाउचर क्या होता है? वाउचर होता है जिसके अगेंस्ट में मैं गुड्स ले सकूं या सर्विस ले सकूं। व्हाट इज द गुड्स? व्हाट इज द वाउचर? वाउचर मींस एन इंस्ट्रूमेंट where there is an obligation to accept it as a consideration or the part consideration for the goods or service or both, and where the goods or services or both to be supplied or the identities of their potential supplier are either indicated on the instrument itself or in the related documentation, including the terms and conditions of such use of such instrument. So that is the instrument, that is the vouchers. Now, what is the time of supply of the voucher? It is very clear. If it is identifiable, then date of the issue of the voucher. If it is not identifiable, then date of the redemption of the voucher. Let me repeat once again. We are talking about the taxability of the voucher. Suppose I am a Kalyan Jewelers. Suppose I am a Kalyan Jewelers. So Mr. B is coming to me and is giving me 50,000 for which he is taking the vouchers. So what I have given? I have given the voucher of the Kalyan Jewelers. At the time of redemption, it is clear you can purchase the gold worth of rupees 50,000. It means I have issued the voucher which is identifiable that on redemption you are going to get what kind of goods. What kind of the goods you are going to get at the time of redemption. So meaning thereby, if the voucher is being identifiable, then date of the issue of the voucher would be the time of supply. Otherwise, date of redemption. Otherwise, any example, let's say I am Reliance Smart Bazaar. Okay. You purchase the voucher worth of rupees 10,000. You have the option to take, let's say, milk, which is an exempted. Let's say purchase the crockery, which might be taxable at 12, 18 or whatever the case. You have the option to purchase the garment, which is taxable at 5%. You might have the option to buy the air condition, which is taxable at 28%. So it means when you have issued the voucher, but it is not identifiable, that which item is going to get redeemed on redemption. It may be any item. In that case, the date of the redemption of the voucher would be the time of supply. Date of the redemption of the voucher would be the time of supply. This is 12 subsection 4, which is exactly same 13 subsection 4. It means this provision is same for goods and services. So we are not going to discuss at the time of services because it is copy paste. So let me conclude once again. In case of the voucher, If it is an identifiable, then if it is identifiable, then the date of the issue of the voucher would be the time of supply. If it is not identifiable, then date of the redemption. Next case is time of supply of the goods in case of the residuary clause. What is the residuary clause? You have discussed forward charge. We have discussed reverse charge. We have also discussed voucher. Suppose the time of supply is not identifiable at the time of, so as per the forward charge, as per the reverse charge, or as per the voucher. If it is not identifiable because of any reason, if it is not possible to identify, then in that case, the time of supply would be covered by this provision. Again, this is same. 13 subsection 5 is same as 12 subsection 5. What does it means? The last three provisions, 12 subsection 4 voucher के केस में, 12 subsection 5 residual के केस में, और 12 subsection 6 late payment के केस में. These provisions are same for goods and same for services. ठीक है. What is the time of supply? If the taxpayer is required to file the periodically return. So we all know that the GSTR 3B1 is being furnished on monthly basis or quarterly basis. So it is a periodical return applicable. Then in that case, the due date of filing that periodical return will be the time of supply, or in any other case, the date on which the GST is paid. Very simple. The last is for goods. The last is time of supply in case of value is being increased because of the interest, late fees, or penalty. This interest, late fees, and penalty are for the delayed payment of any consideration. The voucher provision are same, exactly same for goods and for services. What does it mean, Isan? Isan, it means that if I'm issuing the voucher for which I'm getting the payment, so I have to identify, if the voucher is identifiable, then the date of issue of the voucher would be the time of supply. Otherwise, it is date of redemption. पहले 12/4 confirm करो. Is it clear? There are two questions. Vaishali, in shopping, we are get coupon for the purchase price 1500 for cloth. Expiry date is given. So suppose you are getting any coupon for which you are making the payment. See, on payment, I'm getting the voucher. Correct? We can buy the voucher also, right? We can buy the voucher. So if this is the case and which voucher is identifiable, then yes, the date of the issue of the voucher would be the time of supply. Bhumika, if on voucher it is given that on 28th October, that is the redemption of I will fruit basket, that then 28th October would be the. No. If it is clear at the, see, you have purchased the voucher. Let's say I'm a big basket and you have purchased the voucher from me, and I have confirmed on a future date you will get the fruit ka basket. In that case, the voucher is identifiable. So date of the issue of the voucher would be the time of supply. Coming to this point, there's some coming to 12 subsection 5. Let me complete 12 subsection 4. So, Bhumika, is that okay? So I can move to the 12 subsection 5. Subsection 5 is talking about the residuary clause. Means When I am unable to determine the time of supply because of any provision, then the time of supply would be calculated by this provision. Sir, it means if the goods are identifiable or not in case on question not clear, Isan. Question not clear. It means if the goods are identifiable or not in case of 12 subsection 4. If it is identifiable, then issue of the voucher. If it is not identifiable, then redemption of the voucher. If there is a tax, see, voucher is being issued for after payment. मैंने वाउचर लिया है, आपने मैंने वाउचर दिया, आपने मुझे पैसा दिया है. You have purchased that voucher. Now we are calculating the taxability of this voucher. That's it. If it is identifiable, then date of issue. If it is not identifiable, then date of redemption. Now we are moving to the residuary clause. So what is that? It is very simple. That two cases. Whether periodically return is to be filed. What does it mean? Periodical return means on periodic basis I am required to file the return, not like after the end of the year. Periodic return, like example of the GSTR-3B. Some taxpayer has opted QRMP, quarterly return system. Then they will file the GSTR-3B on quarterly. Some taxpayer has opted monthly. Then they will file on monthly. So these cases are covered in the periodically return is being filed. And what is the example of any other case? Let's say composite dealer are required to file any return in the year. No, they are not required to file any return in the year. The periodic return is not applicable to the composite dealer. They have to file the return only after the end of the year, GSTR-4. In case of the composition dealer, there is no periodicity applicable. There is no periodicity applicable to file the return. It is only after the end of the year. Therefore, initially, the composite dealer required to file the GSTR-4 on quarterly basis. So at that point of time, we can say yes, it will also be covered by this point. But from April 2019, the composite dealer is not required to file periodical return. They have to pay the tax only through one statement, CMP-08. And after the end of the year, they have to file the GSTR-4. So I can say in any other case where the return is not applicable on periodical basis, means period basis पर, चाहे monthly हो, quarterly हो, half yearly हो, वो applicable नहीं है. The date on which the tax is being paid. So in that case, they are required to pay the tax on quarterly. So that would be the time of supply. वैशाली, अगर आप कूपन के लिए पेमेंट नहीं करते हैं, आपको तो ऐसे ही कूपन मिल जाता है, तो इट इज नॉट बीइंग कवर्ड बाय 12(4). सी, व्हेन इट इज अ सप्लाई, you have understood in the initial chapter the supply, it means there has to be the consideration. Suppose मुझे कुछ चीज फ्री में मिल गई, तो there is no consideration, then the question of taxability will not arise. Question of taxability will not arise. हाँ, ऋतिक GSTR-4 जो साल खत्म होने के बाद होता है, बट इस केस में पेमेंट तो करता है ना क्वार्टरली. कंपोजिट डीलर रिक्वायर्ड टू पे द क्वार्टरली. सो क्वार्टर में मान लो 20 तारीख को पे करता है, 15 को पे करता है, देन दैट डेट वुड बी द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. बिल्कुल करेक्ट है वैशाली. then but get on some amount of the shopping, yes, it is not the voucher. Perfect. It is not being covered by 12 subsection 4. So दोनों प्रोविजन क्लियर है. एक बार मुझे वापस कंफर्म कर दो, अगर कोई भी डाउट है तो मैं बात कर लूंगा, क्योंकि 12 subsection 4, 12 subsection 5, 12 subsection 6 are same for goods, same for services. Only the section number is different, 13.4, 13.5 and 13.6. एक बार कंफर्म करो which all provision. Isan, time of supply for goods 12 subsection 4 is same for services, that is 13 subsection 4. उसके बाद में जो रेजिडुअल क्लॉज है वो सेम है, और लास्ट अभी जो हम डिस्कस करेंगे वो सेम है. ठीक है, चलो. एक बार बात कर लेते हैं, अगर लेट फीस है, इंटरेस्ट है, सी एक बात बताओ, सी बिफोर रीडिंग दिस प्रोविजन, let me talk about one point with all of you. Suppose I have made the supply. Suppose I have made the supply for which payment is not being received. Do I need to pay the GST? Let's say I have given the supply to you for which no payment is being received, and finally the amount is bad debt. So whether I'm required to pay the GST or I'm not required to pay the GST because I am not received any payment. Please confirm, because this question will clear your concept, will give me the confirmation that what is your basic understanding. My question is, Ritik, that I have supplied the goods for which no payment is being received. Do I need to pay the GST or not required to pay the GST because the amount is bad debt? Do I need to pay the GST? Answer is the liability on accrual basis. It is not depend. See, please note, it is not depend that when you receive the payment, then only you need to discharge the liability. No. If I have issued the tax invoice, so we have discussed what is the time of supply. Once the time of supply will trigger, then you need to pay the GST. If it is triggered, then you need to pay the GST. It is immaterial whether you have received the payment from customer or not received the payment from customer. भले वो पैसा डूब जाता है, कस्टमर बैड डेप्ट हो जाता है, बट आपको जीएसटी का लायबिलिटी डिस्चार्ज करना पड़ेगा बिकॉज यू हैव सप्लाइड द गुड्स और सर्विसेज. Parsa, that is altogether different. Can I issue the credit note and take the refund? That answer would also be no. Why no? We will discuss in the invoice accounts and record chapter, not now. That we will discuss in the invoice accounts and record chapter, not today. Okay. Now, let's move to the next part. That if, see, now there is no concept of cash basis. But yes, in this point, 12 subsection 6 is talking about the liability on cash basis. For which component? Giving you the example, I have issued the tax invoice for 10,000, including taxes. Or rather, let's say I have issued the tax invoice for 10,000 and there is a 1,800 tax. So the total invoice value is 11,800. Total invoice value is 11,800. Now I am saying that if you not made the payment within 1 month, then I will collect the late fees. Maybe I can say the interest, or maybe I can use the name of penalty. Any interest, late fees, or penalty, but for which reason? The delayed payment of any consideration, because you are not making the payment within the time limit of credit period. The credit period is 1 month. And as per our agreement, there is a penalty clause. So let's say, as per our penalty clause, it is being written, if you make the payment after 1 month, you have to pay rupees 500 per month. What is that 500? Addition in the value because of delayed payment of any consideration. मतलब आपको मुझे 1 महीने में 11,800 देने थे, लेकिन आपने 3 महीना बाद दिए, तो मैंने आपसे क्या कहा? You have to pay 1,000 extra. So finally, what happened? You paid 1,000 extra. You paid 12,800 on, let's say, 31st March. This invoice was of 1st Jan 2022. Time of supply for 11,800, we have already done. Time of supply for the forward charge. That is date of invoice or last date of invoice, whichever is earlier. We are talking about if you receive the addition in the value. What is the amount of addition? 1,000 rupees. What is the reason of this addition? Late fees, interest or penalty for the delayed payment. Then this 1,000 ka taxability would be on the date of receipt. This is the only taxability. This is the only taxability on cash basis. Otherwise, it would be on accrual basis. So let's read the provision. 12.6 says that time of supply in case of addition in the value on account of the interest, late fees, penalty for delayed payment is the date on which the supplier receives such addition in the value. So now section 13, that is the service we will do after the break of 10 minutes. So एक बार पहले आपके, if you have any question, kindly ask. Once I will resolve the query, then we will take the break of 10 minutes. ठीक है. So meanwhile, please ask the question or confirm, is it pay करना ही होगा sir? हाँ, pay करना ही होगा. Such penalty is also liable to GST? Yes sir. Accrual or due, you can say. मतलब accrual or due, rather I will use the word Subham. I will use the word time of supply. जब भी time of supply trigger होगी, I need to pay the GST. On addition in cash basis. Yes, Ritik. This addition in the value for the delayed payment, it will be on cash basis. Darshan, that we have paid only 11,800. We have paid the GST on 11,800. We have not paid the GST on addition in the value of 1,000. On this example, the 10,000 was the taxable value, 1,800 was the tax. The 1,800 was already deposited by the supplier on the basis of the time of supply. But he has received 1,000 extra. Now we are calculating the time of supply for this 1,000. Yes, Isan. 12.4, 12.5, 12.2, 12.3, all the provisions are on due or accrual basis, but this 12.6 is only on the payment basis. Singh, Rajiv, 12.6 is only for 1,000. In this particular case, this example which we have discussed, correct? Example which we have discussed. See, I have issued the invoice for 10,000. 1,800 was the tax, total 11,800. This tax, time of supply, you have already paid as per 12 subsection 2. Now you have received extra rupees 1,000. What is this? This is because of delayed payment of consideration. It means there is a penalty clause or there is a concept of late fees or interest if the payment is being delayed. Then this addition would also be taxable on cash basis. When you actually receive, I have received on 31st March. So will the 31st March would be the time of supply for entire 12,800? No, sir. The time of supply for 11,800 I have already determined according to the forward charge process. But this 1,000 which I have received extra, that will be on calculated on receipt basis. So Rajiv, it is only for 1,000, not for entire amount. I have already given the answer, Darshan. If so that is altogether a different question. Earlier question was that if I have made the supply and customer is bad debt, do I need to pay the GST? Always. Because the time of supply, you have made the supply of the goods, time of supply is being triggered, you need to pay the GST immaterial whether customer given the payment or insolvent or bad debt. We are talking about only extra payment is being received for delayed payment of any consideration. भाई लेट फीस मिलता है ना, कि मान लो इंटरेस्ट मिलता है, करेक्ट, इंटरेस्ट वाला क्लॉज होता है ना, अगर आपने इतने टाइम में पे नहीं किया तो आपको इंटरेस्ट देना पड़ेगा, तो हम इस क्लॉज में उस एडिशन इन द वैल्यू का टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई निकाल रहे हैं. ठीक है, हाँ ईशान, एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. कैश बेसिस पर सिर्फ लेट फीस, इंटरेस्ट और डिलेड पेमेंट फॉर द delayed payment of any consideration, right? GST is paid on interest on penalty basis, sir. Not on all penalty or interest. Not on all penalty or interest. Here we are talking about late fees, penalty or interest. But what is the underlying reason? Whether we are talking about all type of the penalty, you all tell me, क्या हम 12(6) में सभी पेनल्टी की बात कर रहे हैं? क्या हम सभी पेनल्टी की बात कर रहे हैं? नहीं. The late fees penalty for ओनली डिलेड पेमेंट, मतलब आपने मुझे टाइम पे पैसा नहीं दिया, जिसके कारण अब आपको थोड़ा और एक्स्ट्रा पैसा देना पड़ेगा एज पर आवर एग्रीमेंट. हाँ, लेट फीस कैन ओनली बी चार्ज इफ इट इज मेंशन. ऑब्वियसली दीक्षा, एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. ईशान क्लियर है, दीक्षा कंफर्म करना एक बार. सहाना एक बार कंफर्म करना बेटा. दर्शन ऑलरेडी कंफर्म कर चुका. राजीव, एवरीवन प्लीज रिक्वेस्ट टू कंफर्म दैट यस सेक्शन 12 इज क्लियर टू ऑल. प्लीज कंफर्म करना सेक्शन 12 सभी को क्लियर है. ठीक है, तो अब हम बात करते हैं. Sir, in 12(6), date of the receipt of the addition amount will be the date of the supply, may correct? Date of the supply for such addition in the value for 1,000. So, yes, Ritik, we are talking about only delayed payment. Absolutely correct. Bhumika, absolutely correct. We are talking about the 1,000 rupees. We are talking about 1,000 rupees. Screen तो अभी बात ही नहीं करे ना. Currently we are talking about only the discussion, only the question. Currently we are not discussing anything on the screen. Thank you, Ritik. Can supply claim GST as a loss of case by default? No. Answer is no. Aisa Safa Sayed? No. Answer would be no. It cannot be claimed. ठीक है, तो अभी ठीक है, तो सब लोग अंडरस्टूड, क्लियर हो गया. अब एक बार हम, अभी कितना टाइम हुआ है? 7:30. सो टेक्निकल टीम, मनीष जी, ब्रेक So fine. So there is a doubt by residual means when something is not specified or not applicable, then you will follow that particular. Residually means when there is no specific provision, then you will follow the residuary clause. Priyakant, sir, I little bit confused. In our case, 1000 is there, so amount is recovered, receivable amount is one. Got your point. So, as per the agreement, you need to decide the amount. So the total 1000 is being payable. Depending upon the contract, let's say my contract is saying that it is 1000 plus GST. Then I will collect 1180. 1000 is the GST, 1000 is the value, and I will collect 18% extra. Or maybe my contract is silent. It is only saying 1000 you will collect. In that case, I will do the backward calculations. I'll do the backward calculations. Backward calculation means I'll follow the I'll take the 1000 is the total amount. Then I will calculate the taxable value and then tax. So 1000 divided by 118 multiplied by 100. This is by taxable, and what is the tax? You can multiply the 18% on that. एक बार confirm करना. Let me repeat once again to all. Let's say I have collected 1000 and he is not paying extra GST. As per our agreement, it is being silent. So what I will do? I will do the backward calculation. 118 multiplied by 100. This is the taxable value and this is the GST. So this would be the way to calculate the liability of 1000 rupees. Or suppose our agreement is saying that you will have to pay the 500 plus 18% GST. So there is no problem in that case. So because you will collect 1180. Prekant, is it clear to all? Is it clear? This point? Confirm? Now, let's move to the time of supply for the services. Time of supply is for services. Then, 1 second, sir. ठीक है ना? भी वैशाली क्लियर हुआ ना? रेजिडुअल क्लॉज का मतलब क्या हुआ, या रेजिडुअल केस का मतलब क्या हुआ? जब कोई प्रोविजन ऊपर कवर नहीं होता किसी और प्रोविजन में, तब एक जनरल प्रिंसिपल बना दिया जाता है जहां पे वो डिटरमाइन होगा टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. तो अभी हम बात करते हैं टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई द सर्विसेज अंडर फॉरवर्ड चार्ज. फर्स्ट यू नीड टू चेक वेदर इनवॉइस हैज बीन इशूड और नॉट. First, you need to check whether invoice is being issued or not. If the invoice is being issued, then it is again divided into part, whether invoice has been issued within time or invoice is not issued within time. There is two possibilities. If the invoice, we are talking about services. So in that case, the time of supply for the services under forward charge is being divided in two parts. First part, invoice is being issued. Second part, invoice is not being issued. See, if invoice is not being issued, it means the possibility would be the modified intention. Mr. A is a service provider. He is registered in the GST. If he is not issuing the invoice, it means he probably have the modified intention not to pay the GST. Then they are saying the date on which the recipient shows the receipt of the entry in the books of accounts. So, Mr. A has given the supply to B. Try to understand this case first. A has given the supply to B. A has not issued any tax invoice. And the transaction is services. Because we know if it is a goods, then might be during the transit, it can be checked by the officer. There may be the possibility. But if it is a service, it cannot be identified. If the supplier is not issuing the tax invoice, it can never be identified from the supplier books of accounts. Provision is saying that in that case, they will identify the time of supply by looking into the books of accounts of the recipient. When he passes the accounting entry as an expenditure, that will be the time of supply. You might have the question that, sir, how the officer, GST officer, will be able to identify that Mr. B is a customer? Suppose A has not issued any tax invoice. How the officer would be able to understand that B is a customer? It will not be easy case. Correct. Absolutely correct. It is not the easy case. You should understand in a different manner. Let's say officer is doing the audit of Mr. B. Let's say the GST department is doing the GST audit of the Mr. B, and they could identify the expense entry of one party, Mr. A, who has not issued the tax invoice. Then it will be the trigger point. They will probably go to the Mr. A and tell that kindly pay the GST on this value. Let me repeat once again. We are talking about the time of supply for services. It is being divided in two parts. The first part, if the invoice is issued or if the invoice is not issued. If not issued, then it is not possible to identify the time of supply from the supplier's books. So they have given the provision that in the recipient, the date of entry in the books would be the time of supply. Now, what would be the time of supply for the forward charge and invoice is being issued? Then check whether invoice is being issued within the time limit, then invoice ka date or the payment, whichever is earlier. If the invoice is not being issued within time, sir, not being issued within time, then it will be the rendering of services or receipt of payment. Please tell me one point. First, please tell me one point. In these two provisions, if the invoice is issued within time or if the invoice is not issued within time, what is the main difference? Can anybody tell me कि अगर invoice within time issue कर दिया और beyond the time issue किया तो क्या difference आ गया time of supply में? Please explain me in your own language. So simply do not give the reply that it is date of invoice and it is provision of service. No. So मुझे आप अपनी लैंग्वेज में बताइए कि क्या डिफरेंस हो गया अगर कोई इनवॉइस इश्यू नहीं कर रहा है विद इन टाइम, तो उसके लिए क्या डिफरेंट हो गया, मतलब क्या प्रॉब्लम हुआ टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई में, या सम शॉर्ट ऑफ आई कैन से द पीनल प्रोविजंस. एक और मुझे आप बताएं, इस बात का जवाब दीजिए. नहीं यार, और क्या डिफरेंस है? मुझे कोई तो दिक्कत होगी ना, मतलब टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई का प्रोविजन थोड़ा तो हार्श होगा ना जिसने इनवॉइस इश्यू नहीं किया विद इन टाइम. ओके, सी व्हाट आई लाइक टू से, प्रोबेबली आई कुड नॉट मींस कन्वे प्रॉपर्ली. देखो, इनवॉइस इश्यू करने का नॉर्मली सर्विस के केस में टाइम लिमिट 30 डेज होता है. नॉर्मली टाइम लिमिट 30 डेज होता है. अगर विद इन टाइम इश्यू कर देगा ना, तो इसकी जो लाइबिलिटी है ना, वो डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस से ट्रिगर होगी. मतलब इसे 30 दिन का रिलैक्सेशन मिल जाएगा. अगर सप्लायर ने इनवॉइस विद इन टाइम इश्यू किया है तो उसे 30 दिन का एडवांटेज मिलेगा. क्यों? डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस से ट्रिगर हो रही है लाइबिलिटी. कौन सी लाइबिलिटी? टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई क्या फर्क पड़ता है सर? द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई इज द डेट बाय विच आई हैव टू डिपॉजिट द टैक्सेस. इफ नॉट इश्यूड विद इन टाइम, तो वो जो 30 डेज का रिलैक्सेशन था ना, वो खत्म हो जाता है. डेट ऑफ सर्विस वुड बी द लास्ट डेट टू ट्रिगर द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. बेसिकली क्या हुआ, इन दोनों में डिफरेंस क्या जो मैं कहना चाहता हूँ, 30 डेज का एडवांटेज मिल जाता है जीएसटी पे करने के लिए. मेरी सर्विस आज कंप्लीट हुई, ठीक है, आज 16 जुलाई है, 16 जून है, राइट? तो 16 तारीख से 16 मेरी सर्विस कंप्लीट हुई, देन आई कैन इश्यू द इनवॉइस बाय नेक्स्ट विद इन 30 डेज 15th को. अगर मैं 15 तक इनवॉइस इश्यू कर देता हूं तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. अगर लेट से मैं 17 को इश्यू करता हूं, 20 को इश्यू करता हूं, तो टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई क्या होगा? 16 जून. मैं रिपीट करता हूं वापस बात. देखो, इनवॉइस इश्यू करने का टाइम लिमिट सर्विस के केस में, मेरी सर्विस कंप्लीट हुई 16 जून को, द टाइम लिमिट इज 30 डेज. तो लेट्स से आई हैव इशूड द इनवॉइस ऑन 10th ऑफ जुलाई, लेट्स से, तो मेरी टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई क्या होगी? 10th ऑफ जुलाई, एज्यूमिंग नो पेमेंट इज बीइंग रिसीव्ड. बट सपोज इनवॉइस इज नॉट बीइंग इशूड विद इन टाइम, लेट्स से इस केस में हम मान लेते हैं 20 जुलाई को इनवॉइस इशू किया, इसने लेट किया ना, हाँ, तो इसके लिए क्या दिक्कत होगी? टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई वुड बी द provision of services. When the service is being rendered, is being completed, that will be the time of supply. So यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम क्या हुई? प्रॉब्लम ये हुई कि he has to pay the GST 30 days in advance. मतलब जो 30 दिन का रिलैक्सेशन था ना, वो खत्म हो गया. मेक सेंस? इज इट क्लियर? एक बार कंफर्म करना ये क्लियर हुआ है? हाँ, 30 डेज अभी पढ़ेंगे. वी विल डिस्कस 30 डेज वेयर इट इज रिटर्न. सुमन, अभी नॉर्मली 30 दिन भी है, 45 डेज भी है, अलग अलग दिन है, टाइम लिमिट है. अभी हम सेक्शन 31 में पढ़े नहीं. वी विल रीच टू द सेक्शन 31, देन वी विल रीड द रूल 47, विल डिस्कस एंड देन हम लोग आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे. बट जो मैं पॉइंट एक्सप्लेन करना चाहता हूँ, इज इट ओके? इज इट क्लियर? हाँ, ठीक है. तो एक बार हम आते हैं, अंडरस्टैंड करने की कोशिश करते हैं. टाइम लिमिट टू इश्यू द टैक्स इनवॉइस क्या है? सी, as per section 31 subsection 2, read with rule 47. Normally time limit is 30 days, but in case of insurance, banking and financial institution, the time limit is 45 days. In case of the distinct person, please read 25 subsection 5. So the distinct person का definition is being given in 25 subsection 4 and 25 subsection 5. So in case of the distinct person, if it is an insurance, banking, financial institution, NBFC, telecom, or notified categories of the person, then they can issue the invoice before the expiry of the quarter. So there are 3 days. Normally the time limit to issue the invoice is 30 days for services, 45 days in case of the banking, NBFC, etc. It can be quarter, till quarter also, but it is only applicable to the distinct person, insurance, banking, financial companies, institution, NBFC, etc. Can anybody tell me what is the meaning of distinct person? क्या कोई मुझे बता सकता है डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन का मतलब क्या होता है? What is the meaning of distinct person? Can anybody tell me? डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन का मतलब क्या होता है? Single permanent account number and multiple GST number. Absolutely correct, sir. Sir, who has not issued the ISAN? Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So what is the meaning of distinct person? One pen, multiple GST. They are called as a distinct person. बहुत बढ़िया. आर्या, सहना, वैशाली, भूमिका, ईशान, दर्शन, सुमन, आयशा, सफा, सैयद, भूमि. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. बहुत बढ़िया. So in case of the distinct person, there is a time limit of 1 quarter. Now, please tell me, we have already discussed. Please tell me, we have already discussed the time of continuous supply of the goods and continuous supply of service. There is one difference we have already discussed. Please let me know. In case of the continuous supply of the goods and continuous supply of the service, one difference we have already discussed. Can anybody tell me what is the difference? हमने continuous supply of the goods और continuous supply of service में एक difference पढ़ा था. What was that difference? Can anybody tell me what is the major difference between continuous supply of the goods and continuous supply of service? कोई बात नहीं बेटा कृष्णा, कोई इश्यू नहीं. हमने एक डिफरेंस तो पढ़ा था, वो बताना पड़ेगा. व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस कंटिन्यूअस सप्लाई द गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज? That in case of the continuous services, it should goes for a minimum period of 3 months, 90 days. हमने 90 days पढ़ा था. You should replace the same with 3 months. The continuous supply the service means provided or agreed to be provided on continuously under a contract for a period exceeding 3 months with periodic payment obligation and include the supply the service as the government may notify. In case of the continuous supply the service, the invoice should be issued either on or before the due date of the payment, on or before the supply when the service received the payment, when the supplier of the service received the payment. So it is basically linked to the payment. So there are 3 possibilities. If the contract is talking about the due date of the payment, then that date will be the last date to issue the tax invoice. If the due date is not being specified in the contract, then actual receipt of amount by the supplier. Third, if it is linked to certain event, let's say we are talking about, let's say if your first floor is completed, you have to make the payment of 10%. Once your structure is being completed, you have to make the payment of 15%. Once it is furniture and everything is being completed, you have to make me 25%. So when the payment is linked to the completion of an event, then once the event is being completed, supplier. So I have given the example of work contractor. So I am a work contractor. You have purchased the flat from me. When you make the payment, if there is a contract, then again the due date of the payment would be the time of supply. Suppose there is no due date in the contract, then when you actually make the payment, that will be the time of supply. Third possibility, if the contract is talking about the payment on milestone basis, then on completion of that milestone, I have to raise the tax invoice. So there are 3 days in case of the continuous supply of service. Okay. So we will discuss this question. First, tell me whether the concept is clear or not. Let me go back. अभी concept clear है ना या नहीं? अभी कोई confusion है तो please बताएं. Let me repeat. Time of supply of the service under forward charge. First is whether you have issued the invoice or not. Suppose if you have issued the invoice, then you have to check whether it is within time or not. If it is within time, then the time of supply would be invoice or payment, whichever is earlier. If it is not within time, then date on which the service has been completed, provision of services or payment, whichever is earlier. And in any other case, when the invoice is not there, in that case, the date on which the recipient record the same, the receipt of the services in his books of accounts. Now, let me move. What is the time limit to issue the tax invoice? In case of the services, normally 30 days, but 45 days in case of the banking company, financial institution, NBFC, and insurance. And if insurance, banking, financial, NBFC, and telecom, see, telecom is being added here. If they are issuing the invoice to their GST number of the same plan of the company, then the time limit would be quarterly. They can issue the invoice till quarter. Also, we have discussed in case of the continuous supply service, the 3 point we have discussed. If the payment is being, due date of the payment is being given in the contract, then that date would be the last date to issue the tax invoice. If contract is silent about the payment, then actual receipt. And if the contract is talking about certain milestone is linked to the certain event, then on the completion of the event, invoice has to be issued. And what is the continuous supply of the service? When service has been rendered for exceeding 3 months. Now let's read the question. ABC investigation shows that ABC and companies carried out the service of cleaning and repair of the tank in an apartment complex. And they have given the cash on 4th of April to them against work of this description. Dates of the work are not clear from the record. ABC and company has not issued the invoice or entered the payment in the books of accounts. What would be the time of supply and along with the reason? Because in this question, you might give the correct answer, but what is the reason? So in exam, when you give the answer to any question, you have to mention certain reasoning. You will dictate the reason. So please tell me the answer along with the reason. Then I would understand, yes, concept is clear to all. Can be. Darshan, absolutely correct. It can be because it is more than 90 days. राजीव, इस केस में बेटा कंटिन्यूस सप्लाई द गुड्स के केस में नहीं है, कंटिन्यूस सप्लाई सर्विस के केस में 90 डेज मतलब मोर देन 3 मंथ होना चाहिए. गुड्स के केस में कोई पीरियड मेंशन नहीं है. ईशान, कंटिन्यूस सप्लाई द गुड्स में और सर्विस में डिफरेंस क्या? गुड्स को कंटिन्यूस सप्लाई करने के लिए कोई मिनिमम पीरियड का होना जरूरी नहीं है. देयर इज नो रिक्वायरमेंट टू हैव द मिनिमम पीरियड. But in case of the services, it can be called only continuous when it is being rendered for more than 3 months. Sankaran, you are right, but the only point, give me the reason why that, because in this question only one date is being given, 4th April. So the answer is 4th April, but why 4th April? You please try to identify the answer. Investigation shows that ABC company carried out the service of cleaning for which the apartment shows the payment in the cash on 4th of April. So he has passed the entry in the books of accounts on 4th of April. The date of the work are not clear. So the date of the provision of the services are not identifiable. From the record of the ABC company has not issued the invoice. So what is the time of supply? It is clear indication that ABC has not issued the invoice. So can you identify the time of supply in this? Because invoice has not been issued. So in this case, you cannot identify the time of supply according to the invoice has been issued within time or without time, be late. You can't because invoice has not been issued. So in any other case, so the date on which the recipient, that association has shows the payment of 4th of April, I can say that 4th April would be the time of supply. Now the time of supply for the reverse charge. Quick question to all of you. Please tell me time of supply of the goods under RCM. What was the provision? Time of supply of the goods under RCM. What was the provisions? In case of the goods under RCM, we have discussed 3 provisions. Please tell me what was the 3 provisions. Please tell me what was the 3 provisions. In case of the time of supply of the goods under RCM, we have discussed 3 provisions. Please tell me what was the 3 provisions. Wow, great. The first right answer and very quick answer by Darshan. What is the time of supply of the goods under reverse charge? Absolutely correct. So, what was the time of supply for the goods under reverse charge? For first is receipt of goods. Correct. In services, this point is not available. What was the second? Date of payment. Here, same provisions. What was the third? Invoice plus 31 days. Correct, now? So in the exam, you should not write directly 31. You should write immediately following after 30 days. In the exam, you will use the word immediately following after 30 days from date of invoice issued by the supplier. Simply here, please change the number of the days, 61. That's it. In case of the time of supply, for services under reverse charge, what is the provisions? The provision is date of payment or invoice plus 61 days. Let's read the provisions. The date of payment or immediately following 60 days from the date of issue of the invoice or any other document. If it is not possible to determine the time of supply using above parameters, see, this provision is same for goods and same for services. This last wala para. Suppose the payment is not available. Suppose immediately following 60 days is not available. Invoice is not available. Then what is the time of supply? Time of supply will be the date of entry of services in the books of recipient. Is it clear to all? Time of supply under services under RCM. What could be the example? The example you have already given, like legal services given by the advocate. Correct. It is covered under RCM. So let's say I am a recipient of the legal services. What is the time of supply? The date of payment by me to the advocate, or invoice plus 61 days. So when I will calculate, I will add 61. But when I will write in the exam, I will use this word date immediately following 60th day, 60 days from the date of the invoice. Clear hai ya koi question? Now from my side, this RCM chapter is over. Sorry, this particular time of supply chapter is over. You can ask any question. Otherwise, I will start the quick round of the question answer. Why are 30 days extra given in the services? See, normally what happen, to identify the services or because of the continuity of the services, there might be take some time. Say, for example, we should see normally, let's say I'm given the legal services, because in the legal services, always the advance payment is being given. Correct. Then in that case, what happened? That if I have given the invoice on the date of the payment, let's say, correct, but service is being rendered, it will take some time. So because of that, they've given the extra. That is all. If you see the time limit to issue the tax invoice for the supplier, it is already 30 days is being given. So कुछ तो extra देना पड़ेगा ना customer को, recipient को, when he is discharging the liability under RCM. See, normally time limit is for supply the services. If the supplier is issuing the tax invoice, what is the time limit? 30 days. So there has to be some extra. Na? In case of the goods, we have given 30 days extra. So in services, we have also given 30 days extra from the last day to issue the invoice. Because here, Sudhanshu, the date of the service received is not relevant because it is not traceable. You cannot identify. See, date of the receipt of the goods might be you have generated the e-way bill, might be you are maintaining the stock register, you have the system like process in Word statement, something like that. There may be the multiple way to identify the date of receipt of the goods, but there is no concrete way to identify the date of the receipt of the services, so they have not given. The recipient are registered. See, Darshan, if the recipient is registered in the GST, whether he is individual or not, every registered person in the GST has to maintain the books of accounts according to section 35. Otherwise, there is a penalty provisions. So you can't say that one individual is registered but is not maintaining the books of accounts. No, no PLIA would be applicable. He would be covered by the penalty. Had not the lawyer protested against the label? So lawyer is not see, for example, I'm advocate. So I am not liable to GST. Only the recipient is required to pay the GST. The same concept was there in the service tax. So they have borrowed the same concept. Vaishali, reverse charge means when the liability to pay the tax is on the recipient. I'm advocate providing the service to XYZ Limited. Now I am not required to pay the GST. The recipient would be paying the GST under reverse charge directly to the government. It is called as reverse charge. There are multiple examples. It can be like GTA service, transportation service, director services, government services, sponsorship services, rent a cab, housekeeping, multiple, not housekeeping, security. Miss Aisa, no. The GST is not liable on the lawyer, only the recipient liable to pay the tax. So government need the tax, so they are taking from the recipient, not from the advocates. Everyone are clear, so that I can start my quick round of the question answer. Everyone is clear with this chapter? I have completed the time of supply chapter. The next class would be on the value of the supply. Time and value of the supply, correct? Probably you can please double check, but probably we will keep this class on Sunday. And the time would require, I would require more time. It would not be able to complete within the 2.5 hours. So I would need some extra time. So make sure you will be available. Provision is same in case of the related and provision is same. No. Related person. See, they are not for the related person. So which provision you are talking about, Bhumika? Which provisions you are talking about? Because as of now, we have not discussed any provision which is different for the time of supply. The only point, in case of the distinct person, there is some extra days available to issue the tax invoice in case of the services, and that to be limited. In case of the senior advocate providing. Okay. In case of the, I understood. I think you are talking about the serial number 45 of exemption notification. So have you seen that they are raising the GST invoice? Is it? Chalo sir, start karte hain. Quick round of the question, last 10 minutes. And we will complete our session by 8:30. So Manish ji, अब आप मेरे को सेंटर में कर सकते हैं. आप मुझे सेंटर में कर सकते हैं. There will be no screen sharing. I will ask the quick round of the question only. Fine. Thank you. So first question to all of you, can you please tell me the GST is applicable on advance for goods or not? Very simple question. Bhumika, it is applicable for all these concepts. There is no different provision made for the time of supplies, for related or distinct or not related. Everything are same. My first question to all of you. Now you all are required to give me the answer. Quick question. Quick round of the question answer. If I am making the supply of the goods under forward charge, do I need to pay the GST on advance for supply of the goods? Do I need to pay the GST on advance for supply of the goods under forward charge? अगर मैं गुड्स की सप्लाई करता हूं अंडर फॉरवर्ड चार्ज में और मुझे एडवांस पेमेंट मिलता है, क्या मुझे जीएसटी देना पड़ेगा? Very right. In case of the regular, it is not applicable, but in case of the composition, yes, it is applicable. Composite dealer, yes, it is applicable. In case of the composite dealer, yes, it is applicable. What is the meaning of date on which supplier received the payment? My question is, we have talked about the date on which supplier received the payment is earlier of below 2. The date on which the supplier received the payment is earlier of below 2. What was the 2 date? And earlier would be the date on which the supplier received the payment. My second question to all of you, that we have discussed that what is the meaning of the payment, date of payment by the supplier. The date on which the supplier received the payment, that is earlier of below 2. What was the 2 event and we are taking earlier? तो दो डेट कौन सी थी जिसको कंपेयर करते हैं और विच एवर इज अर्लियर विल बी द डेट ऑन विच द सप्लायर रिसीव द पेमेंट. ओके, बहुत बढ़िया दर्शन, एब्सोल्युटली राइट. Very nice, Sudhanshu. Absolutely correct. बहुत बढ़िया, बहुत बढ़िया. Thank you so much for your active reply, active participation. That is indeed required actually when we are teaching online ना. तो टीचर को क्या चाहिए, जो मुझे लगता है, मैं अपना व्यू बता सकता हूँ. टीचर को ऐसा लगता है कि बच्चे लोग है ना क्वेश्चन पूछें, आंसर दें, तो उससे क्या लगता है कि भाई फिजिकली तो मैं आपको देख नहीं सकता, एटलीस्ट क्या इस बहाने से, इस वे से हम अपनी क्लास को इंटरेक्टिव बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं. एंड यू ऑल आर एक्टिव, दैट्स ग्रेट यार. सो सुमन इज ऑल्सो करेक्ट एंड ईशान करेक्ट. बहुत बढ़िया. भूमिका, सोनाली एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. वर्षा, अच्छा आपने पिछले क्वेश्चन का आंसर दिया, करेक्ट है. बहुत बढ़िया. एवरीवन आर करेक्ट. So what is the meaning of date on which the supplier received the payment? The date of the entry in the books or the date on which the payment is credited in the bank, whichever is earlier. ठीक है. अच्छा एक चीज बताना, क्लास ठीक है ना, मतलब the way in which I am trying to explain to all of you, is it clear to all ना? Class is good ना? Any suggestion you can definitely tell me. Very flexible to adopt any changes or any suggestion which you will give to me. मैं क्लास के बारे में आपसे फीडबैक की बात करूं. एवरीथिंग इज ओके. और इफ यू नीड कि दैट सर दिस वुड बी बेटर इफ यू डू दिस, आई विल डेफिनेटली फॉलो योर एनी सजेशंस. अगर कोई भी सजेशन देना, यू कैन डेफिनेटली गिव द सजेशन विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द क्लासेज. आज अपनी पहली क्लास थी, फर्स्ट क्लास थी ना, जीएसटी के रिगार्ड में टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई से मुझे एलोकेशन मिला है, तो अकॉर्डिंगली यू कैन टेल मी. ठीक है ना. सो फाइन. बस कि because it is my also responsibility to take the feedback, and if there is a requirement of improvement, I will definitely I have to incorporate the same because मेरा पर्पज है कि भाई आपको समझ में आना चाहिए. That's it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much बेटा. Thank you. चलो आगे बढ़ते हैं. Now my next question is what is the time limit to issue the tax invoice if there is a delivery of the goods? What is the time limit to issue the tax invoice if there is a movement of the goods? If the supply involves the movement of the goods, what is the last date to issue the tax invoice? मेरा क्वेश्चन क्या है कि टैक्स इनवॉइस इश्यू करने का, टैक्स इनवॉइस फॉर द सप्लाई द गुड्स, इफ द सप्लाई इन्वॉल्व द मूवमेंट ऑफ द गुड्स, तो लास्ट डेट क्या होगी इश्यू द टैक्स इनवॉइस? श्योर जीवन, श्योर जीवन. आई विल डेफिनेटली इनकॉर्पोरेट. जीवन किशोर, आई विल डेफिनेटली इनकॉर्पोरेट द सेम. So my question is, what is the last date to issue the tax invoice if the supply involve the movement of the goods? Yes, date of the removal would be the last date. Absolutely correct. And we have discussed some last date to issue the tax invoice if the sales is on approval basis. Sales on approval, what is the last date to issue the tax invoice? Sales on approval, what is the last date to issue the tax invoice? ईशान ऑलरेडी एग्जांपल दे दिया. अब हम नेक्स्ट क्लास में बात कर लेंगे अगर और कोई कंफ्यूजन है. व्हाट इज द लास्ट डेट टू इश्यू द tax invoice in case of the sales on approval basis? Fine. The last date to issue the tax invoice is before or at the time of the supply or 6 months from the date of the removal, whichever is earlier. Either he will accept within 6 months, then that date becomes the date of the last date to issue the tax invoice, or 6 months from the date of the removal, whichever is earlier. Next, and next question is that if it is a voucher, so what is the time of supply for the vouchers? What is the time of supply for the vouchers? What is the time of supply for the vouchers? What is the time of supply for the vouchers? What is the time of supply for the vouchers? Absolutely. If the voucher is identifiable, then the date of the issue of the voucher. If the voucher is not identifiable, then it will be the date of the redemption of the voucher. Last question for the day. In which case the time of supply is on cash basis? Time of supply would trigger on cash basis. When I'm actually receiving the payment, then only I need to pay the GST. What is the case when the time of supply is linked to the date of payment? इस केस में टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई लिंक्ड है पेमेंट के साथ. Manisha, I was talking about that sales or return basis, that the time limit is maximum 6 months. If in between he accept, then the date of the issue of the invoice will be date of acceptance or 6 months from the date of the removal, whichever is earlier. Let me repeat again. In case of the goods sent on taken on approval or return, invoice has to be issued before or at the time of supply or 6 months. So max to max 6 months you have to wait, whichever is earlier. Correct. In which case the time of supply is linked to the payment? Yes. Late fees, interest or penalty for delayed payment of any consideration. So from my side, today class is over. आज की class complete हो गई. Today class is over. So thank you very much. We will meet tomorrow. Not tomorrow, we will meet in the next class. So probably it would be Sunday. You can check in the schedule. It will be communicated shortly, but probably it would be on Sunday, and we will do some longer class. Instead of 2.5 hours, it will be the longer class because the topic is very important, value of the supply. Thank you very much. In the next class, you may ask the question tomorrow. Next class, whenever we have that in the next class, you can discuss. Otherwise, from my side, today class is completed. Thank you very much. Good night to all of you. Manish ji, आप close कर सकते हैं.